Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
A Man After My Own Heart by Bo Bandy. The new neighbors moved in next door, but I didn't think too much about it at first. I waved from my porch to instigate friendly relations, but I wasn't about to barge over there and become the welcome wagon. I'm more of a live and let live sort of neighbor, uninterested in embedding myself in other people's lives. The same was true for my preference about them. Friendly, but not real friends. Several months went by, and I was a little embarrassed to admit I didn't even know their names. They had relettered the mailbox to say Natus, but I only knew the man's first name from his wife calling it out from the driveway. Who names their child Lord, anyway? She was attractive in a creepy goth sort of way. I still didn't know her name. I dubbed her Elvira until I learned the truth. He's a tall, snazzy dresser, and their kids are average looking. Nothing out of the ordinary. I thought it was a bit odd when they put up Halloween decorations right after the 4th of July, but it seemed harmless enough. Some people really get into the party themes. Here was a family living next door to me, and I made almost no effort to get to know them. There's a fine line between being private and rude or uncaring, and I felt like maybe I'd crossed it a little. I worried my aloof behavior might have made them feel unwelcome. With a gregarious ambition, which I soon came to regret, I went over to introduce myself. Elvira answered the door. I made a mental note to ask her real name so I could stop mock labeling her in my head. Hello, I'm Lily. Won't you come in? My husband should be home from work soon. I thanked her and sat down on their couch. The decor of the living room was interesting, to say the least. Basically, it might have passed for more Halloween decorations, but it wasn't cheap ornamental junk. They really went all out on their Gothic motif. It brought to mind what you'd expect a medieval torture chamber to look like. Executioners' axes were on the walls, and what appeared to be an inquisition rack for confessions was also prominently displayed nearby. My reaction to their dungeon was amusing. Don't pay our colorful furniture any heed. We are eccentric in our tastes, but we rarely sacrifice neighbors on their first visit. Her attempt at what I assumed was levity fell very flat. I smiled politely at the noble effort, but it seemed just like what a real sadist might joke about. It certainly didn't help reassure me. I went to arise so I could make a hasty retreat from their creepy murder den, when I heard Mr. Natus's car pull into the driveway. It seemed I was going to have to stick around the Adams family mansion at least a few more minutes to avoid being impolite. I silently cursed my mindless desire to introduce myself to them. Lord Natus came inside and was immediately notified by Lily of my visit. I introduced myself and made some vague apologies for not coming over sooner. I sat back down while Samuel, as he introduced himself, and I made chit-chat. Lily observed our uncomfortable little interaction from afar. Their children were not yet home from school, so it was just the three of us in their living room. I tried to think of something to say, but I was too distracted by the axes and sacrificial daggers on the wall. Mr. Natus noticed my nervousness and tried to put me at ease. "Oh, we haven't used those ritual daggers in ages," he offered with a slight grin. The coldness of his eyes gave me an involuntary shiver. Then he added, "They're as dull as butter knives, so we had to quit using them. We use the axes now. Samuel glanced over to Lily to gauge her reaction to his provocative jest, but she betrayed no emotion. I got the feeling she was distracted by something troubling. My guess was that whatever it was would be far more troubling to me than to them. I desperately sought an excuse to skedaddle out of here, but my mind drew a total blank. Try as I might, I couldn't fabricate a good excuse to facilitate my departure, short of me abruptly leaping up and fleeing in abject terror. I was going to have to stick around a bit longer and tough it out. I could tell my morbid hosts were enjoying my wide-eyed reaction. They seemed to be feeding off the growing level of unease. It had the effect of actually encouraging both of them to increase their alarming banter. I was trying to play along. If there's one thing you learn growing up as the victim of bullies, it's that if they know something bothers you, they'll do it forever. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me squirm. I did my damnedest to pretend to be amused, while sweat beaded on my forehead. I'm not sure they were fooled by the paper-thin facade, but it was the best I could do. I wanted to turn the tables and creep them out for a change, but they had home court advantage. The two of them kept using clever metaphors and sick puns to vaguely suggest they intended to harm me. I was pretty alarmed by their twisted little mind game, but it was never so obvious as to qualify legally as an actual threat. There was always a more innocent interpretation that it could mean. Any rational person would have already excused themselves and hightailed it out of there, but I was determined to stick it out. I pushed past my paranoia and deepening fear. I had to live next door to these macabre ghouls. If I turned tail and ran, they'd have the upper hand at every future contact I'd have with them. Lily feigned concern about my tense posture and body language. Then Samuel asked if I've ever been on a medieval torture rack before. Since I'd managed to rebuff their psychological threats, they were systematically pushing me towards a more physical intimidation. They worked as a cunning team, all the while with pleasant smiles on their emotionless faces. I couldn't begin to say what possessed me, but I stood right up and volunteered for a chiropractic adjustment. Both of my hosts smiled at my unexpected acceptance. As she placed my wrists in the restraints, I couldn't decide if I was incredibly brilliant or amazingly stupid. Upon feeling the device tighten to an uncomfortable degree, I had my answer. Muscles stretched, tendons drew tight, the sockets of my bones popped and cracked. I would have confessed to anything, and yet my two sadistic hosts were not officially interrogating me for any stated reason. They were just showing me they were in control. We both knew it. I wanted to scream out. I wanted to piss my pants in agony, but somehow I kept it together. Finally, Lily released the rack, and my body sprang off it like a rubber band. I caught the two of them making eye contact. There was an unspoken air of respect. I was sure of it. Intense waves of pain radiated through my body as the tension was released so dramatically. But I did my best to pretend I enjoyed the whole exercise and torture. Instead of excusing myself, I sat back down on the couch. Part of that was because I was in so much pain I could barely stand. But I also wanted them to think I wasn't afraid of them. The three of us went right back to talking of regular things without even skipping a beat. All the while, the most disturbing mind games imaginable continued. Believe it or not, we did have some genuine interests in common. I started to feel my fear and tension dissipate. Samuel asked about my hobbies and pastimes, After relating my interests that opened the door to reciprocation, I asked about theirs. Lily spoke up and admitted she had a consuming passion for studying the chemistry of potions and poisons. Samuel watched my reaction with obvious glee. I tried to pretend I wasn't disturbed by her revelation, but it became infinitely harder when she offered to mix me a drink from their bar. It had a number of ancient-looking blown glass bottles with the skull and crossbones insignia on them. She poured me a tall glass of something that actually bubbled from the top like a mad science concoction. I downed the strange brew without hesitation and immediately asked for another with a straight face. The two of them looked at each other and laughed hysterically. Lord Samuel Natus and his wife finally dropped the spooky intimidation pretense and dark humor. I had rolled with every psychological punch and braved their brazen introduction. In short, I had earned their respect. "You, sir, are a good sport, and a man after my own heart," he offered earnestly. I replied, "Well, you aren't supposed to know that yet. My surgical tools are in my trunk." So quoth this raven. My darlings, I so enjoy Bo's work, and I'm glad to be reading it again. Thank you to Bo for allowing me access to his wonderful stories and to read them to you. My dears, I think I'm going to join Chilling Tales for Dark Nights Evil Idol contest coming up soon, starting the 7th of next month. If I do, I desperately need your help because I really stink at promoting myself. So if you guys will help me, maybe I'll get past the first round, but I'm not counting on it. I do hope I have your support, though. Anything you can share and upvote on there would really be a big help. Get more people. And just thank you for coming to listen to me here, as always. I do so look forward to your visits. And a special thank you to my Patreon supporters, Ermin, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, and Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.